Hello guys, and welcome to World of Tanks. Today is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go through my garage and just talk about the tanks I have, what ones I like and dislike, and that kind of thing. I have been playing since it came out on PS4, so I haven't been playing that long, but I've got quite a vast array of tanks in my garage. Now, I haven't got any tier 1s or 2s, so that we're going to start on the tier 3s. I am a bit of a history buff, and my kind of main interest is World War II, so a lot of my tanks that I'm keeping or aiming for are famous World War II tanks, not necessarily mass-produced ones, but kind of important ones. Obviously there's some cool tanks that came out after World War II, but my main interest is the World War II ones. Anyway, let's start with the Locust tier 3 premium light tank. I think I got it for playing the beta or for just starting the game. It's not bad. It's a fast tank. It's fun to play. It's a very decent tier 3 tank, but obviously quite lightly armoured and good for a bit of a laugh, really. Now, going on to this one, the Panzer II JPS is another free tank that I got from like a magazine code or something like that. Bit of a garish colour scheme on it, unfortunately. It's a pretty important World War II tank on the very early start of World War II, so I'm going to keep it, but I don't particularly enjoy playing this one. It's very slow. It's got a machine gun as its main weapon, rather than a cannon. Yeah, not a big fan of this tank, but I'll go and play in it once in a while. As you can see, I've got no equipment on it. I can't seem to play it very well. Maybe I just haven't got into how to play it properly, to be honest, but whatever. So tier 4s, go straight on to the M3 Lee. It's as you can see, it's a famous World War II tank, so I've got camouflage and equipment on it. It was mass produced, used by the Americans and the English in World War II. Now, its pros is it's got a pretty decent gun on this thing, and it's pretty fast. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's a medium tank and not a tank destroyer. Its main gun is on the hull, so you have to move the whole tank to fire it, so that's a big disadvantage. Another disadvantage, of course, is it's very thinly armoured, and it's a very recognisable and noticeable tank with the height of it. It's very an easy target, and if I'm playing against tier 4s, I quite often aim for the Lee because I know I can penetrate it with pretty much any gun. So I'm not a fan of this tank particularly, but it is an important World War II tank, so I have kept it. It's not bad looking, it's a bit odd. It's a bit of a crazy design, but hey, what the hell. Now go on to the Matilda, an important English tank, a tier 4. Now, in World War II, when it first came out, the Germans didn't have much that could do any damage to this thing, so this was a good tank. It had a good gun, it had very good armour for its time, but unfortunately it was very slow. And in the game, although it is not as slow in the game as in real life, but it's still pretty damn slow. This is the main, I think, point that people dislike this tank, and it's downer for me. If you're playing higher tiers who can actually do quite a bit of damage to this thing, you're pretty much dead meat because you're too slow to really get out of the way if you meet something. But if you are in a high, if you are the highest tier, you can dish out a lot of damage. It's got a good pen, it's got good reload, a very good good reload speed, and it's got good armor, so it can dish out a lot of penetrating hits during a match, if it can get there in time to do any damage, of course. And obviously it's a famous World War II tank, so it's got camo and equipment. Now, the Tier 4 German tank destroyer, the Hetzer, is a very important tank in World War II. It's one of the most produced anti-tank guns from the German side. It's very small, very nimble, very easy to hide, so that's why it was good in World War II. It's quite a decent gun. In the game, it's quite fast, it's quite easy to hide, it's got a decent gun, it's a funny little thing really, it's quite fun to play. As you can see, got camo on it, and I've got a little symbol on the side. It's one of the only tanks I've got a little symbol on the side of, Jaeger, and as you can see I've got equipment on it as well. Now, I've only just recently I've had it in my garage for a long time. I've just put new crew in it to actually use it again, because it is a damn good anti-tank vehicle. It's Russian, as you can see. It's got a good gun, it's fairly fast, it's not the easiest thing to hide. As you can see, it's not as small as that one, that's for sure, but it's got a good gun, it's got quite a good reload, in fact, for such a high damage output gun. So yeah, it's obviously quite fragile though, so you want to be sitting at the back doing some sniping with this thing, and trying to be very careful with it. I don't know too much about its real life counterpart, but so we'll move on to the next one. Obviously I've done some pretty good games in this. This is partly another reason why some of these tanks are in my garage, is because I had some pretty mean games in them. Got like mastery or first class mastery on a lot of these tanks. The Stuart is an important tank, mass produced mainly before the war, but at the beginning of the war as well. This is a Russian version, just because it's how I got to this particular tank. It's a Tier 4. It's fairly fast, pretty fast. Not the best gun. It can ping off a few different types of tanks. I'm not exactly a big fan of this tank, but it's an important tank. So let's just go on to next tier. Now, Tier 5's got quite a few Tier 5's. Got the M4 Sherman, of course. Now I've got the Top Gun on this, so it is quite a fun tank. Quite a fun tank to play. It can deflect some shots from the front. It's got the gun's pretty good on Top Gun. The kind of default gun is not very good though, so expect to get blown up before you do much damage. But as you can see, this is the mass-produced Sherman. The Americans and the English used it. Very important tank. Not the best tank in real life either, but yeah, decent tank in the game, that's for sure. And we have the Crusader. In game, it's pretty cool. And another one, I think this is the only one I've got the name on the front there. Iron Duke. It's got camo and equipment. It's pretty fast in game. It's got a pretty decent gun. Obviously it's a light tank, so it's lightly armoured, but I've had some pretty beast games in this one. But yeah, if you're the lowest tier, don't expect to be doing much other than spotting damage, really. Yeah, I've got some premium ammo on there as well. I don't have much premium ammo. I really need to invest in that at the moment, but I'll do it later. In real life, this had a lot of problems. The real life version of this tank, it wasn't a great tank, to be honest. A lot of faults with it, a lot of mechanical problems. It just couldn't compete. Let's go on to this one. This is the Panzer IV. This is the Girls and Panzer version, which is anime, which is based as a, well, it's all about tanks. Now, it's a nice looking tank. Obviously, this is the Girls and Panzer version, so it's got a couple of little symbols on it and a different colour scheme. But in general, this was a decent tank in real life and in the game. It was capable of being refitted with extra armour and bigger guns to cope with the upgrades of the Allies' tanks without it diminishing its speed or manoeuvrability. So if they kind of mass-produced this, the Germans probably would have done better in World War II, but we'll leave it at that. In-game, it's an all-round good tank. It's a medium. It's the tiered version of this one. This is a premium, but the tiered version of this can have this gun or a derpy gun. It's up to you how you play, I suppose, but I kind of prefer this one. Quite high fire rate, fairly good damage, fairly good speed. This tank, it's generally a decent tank. Now the AMX ELC bis. My first tier 5 French tank. It's not my favourite tank. I've had some pretty damn good games in this, but most of the games I ended up getting killed pretty quickly. It's got a turret, but it doesn't really move on this thing. So you got but the gun is for tier 5 light tank is a pretty good, a very good gun. Obviously it's very lightly armoured, it's very quick, but it doesn't really turn its turret. It's a bit hit or miss with this tank. You can have some good games, you can have some very, very bad games. I don't know much about the real life counterpart of this one either. I'm not too familiar with the French tanks. The Russian T-34, very famous tank, mass produced in such a large quantity of numbers, and when they first came out, they were very decent tanks. They could do a lot of damage to the German counterparts before the Tiger came out, and you know, decent. It's pretty quick. The gun's alright. Yeah, just a T-34 really. Tier 5, of course. Got equipment and camo on it because it's a famous for World War II tank. The KV-1. I love this tank. It's obviously a heavy tank. It's got a good amount of armour for a tier 5. It's got the derpy gun on it, so it does a lot of damage. I can quickly almost take out other tier 5s with one hit if I hit them in the right place. So it's a good tank to have. I've got equipment and camo on this thing. The KV-1, when it came out in the real world, it really scared the pants off the Germans. This is before the Tiger came out. This thing was very good. It had one fault, a couple of faults really. It was mechanically quite simple, like most Russian tanks, but that meant it was easier to use. But unfortunately, if I remember rightly, it could only be manned, the turret could only be manned with one person, so the commander had to do the aiming and the firing and giving out the commands and stuff, which meant it was quite slow. So it had its problems in the real world, but not so much in game. Now we have the Churchill 3. I wanted to keep a Churchill, and I decided, well, there's not many Chinese premium tanks out at the moment, so I'll get this one, and I've kind of killed two birds with one stone. This is Churchill 3, decent armour. It pings a lot of fire. Its gun is pretty decent. It's amazing reload speed, quite a good pen, not the heaviest of damage, but it can dish out just as much damage as a much bigger gun because it's got such a fast reload, and you bounce quite a few hits when you get shot at. It's obviously got the main problem of the Churchill, which is it's very slow. I've had a couple of games where I'm like, oh yes, I'm the top tier, and there's only like 2 of the top tier 5s. I end up pretty much doing no damage because it's on a big map, and by the time I get to the other side, all the enemies have been killed. But in general, this does me a lot of good. This one makes me a lot of silver. So it's up to you if you're okay with slow tanks. This is a good one to go for. And now I've got the Chinu. This is a decent tank. It's a medium, so it's got the top gun obviously. Camo hasn't. I haven't had a chance to buy equipment for it yet. It's a generally good tank. It's a medium. It's got fairly decent armor. It's not gonna deflect any hits very often, so it's going to soak up quite a few hits. If you do get shot at, you're going to get penetrated. The gun's pretty damn good for its tier, and it's pretty damn quick too. So your general medium tank. Well, that's it for tier 5s as well. Let's go on to tier 6s. Now, Snakebite. Very little armor. Not very good gun, but it's fast as hell and it's a lot of fun to play. I've had a lot of fun games in this. Because it's so fast and so nimble, quite often I just end up overestimating how far I've gone and overshoot into the enemy's side of the map and get totally destroyed before I really do anything, because it's just so fast and so fun to play. And just look at the camo and some of the stuff on it. It just looks pretty damn awesome, doesn't it? This is obviously a version of the Cromwell. And moving on to another tier 6, it's the medium Knight, which is also a Cromwell based tank. As you can see, it's a garish colour scheme. It's the Union Jack. I'm not overly keen on it, but it's a fast tank. It's a pretty decent gun. Its armour is definitely better than the Snakebite as well. So it's a fun tank to play, a very good tank as well. So yeah, if you want an English premium tank, this is probably a good choice. Obviously, in the real world counterpart, the Cromwell is a pretty decent tank. Nothing too spectacular. Let's go on to the Germans. We have the VK3601H. I've played a lot of beast games in this. This has got an amazing gun on it. It's a pretty decent speed. It's got pretty decent speed, fairly good armour. But the gun is pretty damn devastating, as you can see on this thing. It's a tier 6, but it can do a heck of a lot of damage. Basically, you want to get out, shoot, and then retreat before you take any hits. And you can wipe out a lot of tanks in a game. With this one, I do very much enjoy this tank. And we have the Jagdpanzer 4. It looks awesome. That's pretty much the only reason why I've kept this tank and want to play it, is because it looks pretty damn cool. It was decent, producing decent numbers in the real world, and yeah, it just looks awesome. Tank destroyer. Okay hit points for a tank destroyer, quite a high fire rate, quite good pen. It's not a devastatingly high damage output gun, but it'll do. It's quite low to the ground, so you've got good camo and concealment on this thing. Yeah, not bad. You've got the AMX-12T. I am not enjoying this tank at all. It gets put against always gets put against higher tiers. I'm pretty much always the one and only tier 6 in a tier 7 or 8 match. It's got an auto loader, which would be devastating if it was mainly in tier 6 matches, but it's not. It's hardly ever in just a pure tier 6 match. Obviously, it's not devastatingly fast either for a light tank, so yeah, it's very hard to get the XP on this to get to the next one, and that's all I'm waiting for. Then I will sell it. Now, probably back when I first started getting into World War II stuff, when I was a young teenager, this was my favourite tank, and it's probably one of my favourite tanks to this day, the T-34-85. It just looks awesome. It kind of, I guess, looks like a generic tank, but it just is awesome. It's got a pretty damn good gun. It's got fairly decent armour. It's fairly fast. It's a nice tank. You see, it's got camo and equipment on it. Yeah, I just really enjoy this tank. It's a fun tank to play. Yeah, so let's move on to the T-34-88, which is basically the T-34-85, but with the 88 gun from the German side of it. It's a German captured version of the T-34-85. It's got a nice little colour scheme to it. Looks very, very cool, and it's just got a slightly better gun. It's pretty awesome. It makes a good amount of silver. Yeah, so I will keep playing this one, that's for sure. The KV-2, the derpy looking thing, quite a very distinctive tank this. Let's say the main feature on this is its gun. I've got the derpy version of the gun, but even with the non-derpy version, it can be devastating. You can take out tanks your tier or below with one hit. Now, this is even scary to higher tiers, tier 7s. It can dish out a lot of damage to them as well. But as you can see, its main problem is it's hard not to see this coming. It's got a massive turret. It's easy to penetrate it. It's a bit of a sniper tank, really. But with this derpy gun on, you've got to get in quite close. So inner city fighting and smaller maps, this does really well. I've had some very beast games, but if you're in quite an open map, it can get killed very, very quickly. But I do love it. Now we have another Russian tank, tank destroyer this time, Su-100. It's pretty damn devastating. It's quite low to the ground, looks pretty sweet. Its gun's pretty damn awesome as well. Does a lot of damage with this thing. But obviously quite light armoured. It's a sniper tank. But you can absolutely devastate the enemy if you remain unspotted. The Chinese is another T-34-85 basically. It's a Type 58 for the Chinese version of the T-34-85. Not much else to say about this. I'll be selling this because I'm just using it to go up the tree line of this tank. Yeah, so that's all my tier 6s, quite a few of them. Alright, so tier 7s, the Comet. First of all, the English Comet. I've put a little that's another symbol. That's a limited edition symbol on the side there. It's overall quite a good tank. I'm not overly impressed with it, but I have got first class mastery on it a couple times, so I'm keeping it. Whether that's a good idea or not, I'm not overly keen on it. I probably won't use it that much, but hey, what the hell. The Black Prince, I'm keeping this one because it's the Churchill upgrade, basically. The Black Prince, my partner likes the name Black Prince, so I'm keeping it kind of for her, to be honest. It's got camo on it. I haven't put equipment on it because I'm going to wait until I've unlocked all the upgrades for this thing. It's got the usual. Actually, yeah, I've got all the upgrades for it, so I should be buying equipment for it soon. It's slow. It's a Churchill. It's slow, but it's got good armour and a decent gun. That's pretty much all you can say about it. Panther. You gotta love the Panther. I, of course, do love the Panther. It's fast. It's got a good gun. It's not got the best armour. It's the Panther, after all. Obviously, in real world, this was a devastating tank. Could compete with pretty much anything the Allies used against it, but it just wasn't produced in good enough quantities of numbers, really, unfortunately. By the time it was produced, the Germans were on the back foot, unfortunately, because this would work really well in Blitzkrieg. But yeah, I very much enjoy this. And it's the Tiger next. What can you say about the Tiger? Very, very famous tank. Looks awesome. Got a great gun. Got a lot of hit points on this thing. You can soak up a lot of damage. It's not going to deflect much damage because it's flat armor, but it can take the hits. It's a bit of a brawler. It's pretty damn cool tank. And I've got the Hammer, the premium version of the Tiger. It makes me quite a bit of cash. I don't like the colour scheme. It's a bit much. The stars on the back, the stars on the gun, it's just too much. Don't like the colour scheme, but I'll keep it because it's a Tiger and it's a premium version. You've got the J Panther. It's alright. I'm not overly keen. I'm not going to keep it. I'm working towards the Ferdinand, which is a famous World War II tank destroyer. It's okay. It's a decent tank destroyer. Just nothing spectacular about it. Now, the Russian IS-2 Premium. Oh, man, I've had some beast games in this. This has got a great gun. Heavily armoured. It's decent enough speed on it as well, so it doesn't go too slow. You can see it got 130,000 XP on it. It's a premium tank, so it does make you a lot of money when you do have a good game. The IS, the IS, I was not impressed with this when it came. When I first got it. The stock gun and the stock engine are crap. It did hardly any damage. It was too slow. It got caught out. It got blown up loads. But I've upgraded it. The upgraded version is pretty beastly. It's got a great gun. It's got a decent speed. The armor's pretty thick. It's an all-round good tier 7 tank. But nothing. It's not quite as awesome as the Tiger or the IS-2, unfortunately. The SU-152. Not a fan of this either. I've got the derpy gun on it. Maybe I should change the gun. But let's have a look. But I'm basically just working towards the ISU-152, which I can unlock with free XP, but I don't want to do that because if it's as crap as this one, I will not be impressed. So I'm leaving it as is and just going along with it. I bought some equipment just to help speed it along and get some more decent games. I'll sell the equipment and sell the tank once I get to the next one. The SU-100M1, it's decent. It's pretty damn fast. It's got a pretty good gun. It's got a very high reload speed on it, so it can dish out some damage without having to have a devastatingly powerful gun. It's pretty quick. It's obviously lightly armoured, but you can scoot around, shoot, and then move about, and then get out of there before you get blown away. As you can see, I'm not going to upgrade it. Don't think I'm going to keep it. And I'm just working towards the SU-101. And the Chi-Ri. Initially, this was a crap tank. It's got pretty weak armour. It's doesn't deflect any shots either. It's not particularly fast. The stock gun was pretty crap as well. It was very hard to grind up to the next part of the tree. Now it's pretty decent. It's a lot at the end of the yeah, I think, yeah, when you fully upgrade it, it's an auto loader. It's got 3 shots in it. It's not devastating. The gun's not devastatingly powerful, but if you've got 3 shots in the clip, it can be pretty awesome. And unexpected, because a lot of people don't go down the Japanese tree tank lines, so they're not expecting this one to be an auto loader. So you can catch them very much unaware, and this, I think, is the main draw of this tank. It's a decent all-round tank, really. Right, tier 8s, and this is my last line because I've not got up to tier 9s yet. The Freedom, pretty horrible colour scheme. I'm not a fan of it, but it's a decent tank. It's got a pretty good gun. It's pretty fast. It can soak up a lot of hits. It deflects quite a few hits as well. It's a good money making machine. So yeah, T-34. Initially, this was my first tier 8 premium tank. This was my first premium tank, so at that time I was working on my tier 4s. I probably didn't know how to use this thing properly, so I wasn't a big fan of it, but now it's growing on me. It's got a massive gun on it. Reload speed's pretty slow. It deflects some shots. It's got a good amount of armor. It's not too slow either. Yeah, nice thing. M40/M43 artillery. Haven't played much in it. It's better than the tier 7 version of it. The tier 7 version was wholly inaccurate and very slow to reload. Took me a long time to grind up to this tank, and this one seems to be a lot more accurate. So I am enjoying it more. Centurion 1. I'm not sure about this tank yet. I haven't played much in it. It's an alright tank. Generally, it's got fairly decent armor. It's pretty quick. It's an okay gun. I haven't done any of the upgrades yet, so we'll see. The Panther 2, I have not got the crew in it yet, so I haven't been able to afford it. So I have not played any games in it. I've just bought it, so not much I can say about it yet. The Tiger 2, the real world version, was a devastating beast of a machine, and if any enemies it came across, it would pretty much blow them away. But unfortunately, in reality, it was shit. It was very hard to transport. It was at that time a sitting duck for the Allied. The Allied tank, Allied aircraft. But in game, it's also not very, not the best. After the Tiger, this was a disappointment. But it's okay. It's not great. The AMX CDC, fast, pretty good gun, very light armoured. It soaks up hits like nothing else, but it's a decent tank, fast, and good at money making. The Liberté is better. It's pretty much a bit garish colour scheme, but generally decent gun, generally pretty damn fast, but does get, it's a bit soft to be honest, but it's better than the AMX CDC. The Motherland, got it free, not bad. Deflects quite a few hits. It's okay gun on it. It was a free premium tank. What can you say? And that's it, guys. That is my garage so far. I will of course come back at some point to give you a lowdown on my new tanks, and hopefully get some tier 9 soon. Thanks for joining me, guys. See you soon. Bye bye.